Good morning. Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dale.
Good morning.
Good morning, Fairley.
Good morning.
Good morning, Debbie.
Good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
Morning.
This call is being recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Today is Sunday, June 17th, 2018, and we welcome you to our Sunday morning roundtable discussion. We are recording from the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, Plainfield, New Jersey, the United States of America, and we will start this morning with our prayer, our poem.
This is from the Blue Book, page 61. Father, teach me how to still the clamoring of sense and fill my place as listener, that I may hear thy voice and grow to understand thy word, and so become thy messenger. Then teach me how to banish pride and stubborn will, that I may be thy representative, with no false sense of human zeal, that every word may bless and heal when I thy message give.
Beautiful. Thank you. And then from Miscellaneous Writings, Mary Baker Eddy. We today in this classroom are enough to convert the world if we are of one mind, for then the whole world will feel the influence of this mind, as when the earth was without form, and mind spake, and form appeared. Our subject this morning is the universe, including man, evolved by atomic force? And the golden text, Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. I never can read that without thinking of the beautiful hymn number 329. The heavens declare the glory of him who made all things. Each day repeats the story, each night its tribute brings. To earth's remotest border, his mighty power is known. In beauty, grandeur, order, his handiwork is shown. And this beautiful lesson was one that Fairley wrote. Many of you have mentioned what you have been getting from it. So thank you. Thank all our lesson writers for the wonderful job they do. week after week. We're very, very grateful. So let's start. I'm going to start today with a couple of things. One is something Linda found from Bicknell Young. He said it was 1936. Right?
Yeah, his class note.
Class.
He was talking to his students about statements of truths. He had them bring them into the class. And so he's addressing this idea of just pulling out words from the book. When I ask you to give us citations today to bring out clearly the unreality of evil, what I expected was unfoldment, not corroboration. All you have done is to bring in sentences containing the words unreality of evil. What is the matter here? That is just a phrase, and it does not mean a thing unless we understand it. We must get rid of all that orthodox stuff, the stereotyped expressions and routine phrases. That is the way error is trying to destroy the movement. It would undermine the very foundation of all that Mrs. Eddy established. Don't you see that is what is permeating our church periodicals and official literature? I don't mean Mrs. Eddy's works or the writings of Mr. Kimball, but the rest of our literature is becoming more and more permeated with stereotyped and routine expressions, so that you can't tell whether you've read an article before or not. And then he went on to say, the articles to be useful do not have to be full of tremendous metaphysical statements, clearly unsuited for unprepared thought. That would be outside their purpose. But the articles we have been getting in the periodicals have been more about Christian Science instead of being Christian Science. End quote.
Thank you. That is so well said, and something to be very, very careful of. And again, it is why people send me things often to read. But what we have, what we offer in our church, the creme de la creme, it is the very best of the early workers. And it's not just prattling or talking about science. It's deep metaphysics, and it always handles animal magnetism. I was recently given a book. It was a good book. There were good things in it, but I don't think there was one thing in it that handled the animal magnetism. Nothing about malpractice. It was all God is love, and He's your supply, and all of this. You've got to have that traction. You've got to have that in it, or it's incomplete. And what did you find, Florence, Mrs. Eddy said about writing Science and Health? What was you?
Yeah, it's in Miscellany. I don't remember. She was saying that she found that her printer stopped working, and she was getting the message to include what she was being told about animal magnetism. And for some reason, I think she was resisting it, she said. And it kept coming, this conviction to add it to the book. And when she did it, shortly after that, the printer had set out to meet her, and she had set out to go and give him what she had. None of them knew this, and they met at a station. I have the... I'll find the page. It's in Miscellany. And they exchanged, she gave it to him. I mean, it was just God, the whole thing was God engineered, because it just stopped. She wasn't writing again, and he wasn't going to continue to print. None of them communicated, but that's what was happening until she added that part about animal magnetism.
Chapter on animal magnetism. It has to be.
And then he printed.
Right, and then he continued, printed, finished what he was supposed to do.
Any good watch, you have to handle it, of course. Any good lesson, any good treatment, it must be in there. You can't just say all is wonderful. Not while we're still on this planet, anyway. Any questions about that?
I was thinking what Linda read certainly shows why they cast them out. You know, with uncovering that they weren't the DOD or whatever was not doing what they were supposed to be doing, and they didn't want to fix it or didn't know how to fix it. So better to get rid of that voice thing they're not doing.
Well, actually, Big Del Young was. They did not excommunicate. They couldn't because he was so popular.
They wanted to,
Yeah.
but they
No,
couldn't.
they gave it really made it difficult for him though at the end.
Yeah.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Just that when I was first learning about Plainfield, I tried to share, some of the watches with a friend of mine who had been in the BOD church for a really long time, but she loved the prayers, in the watches, prayers, and arguments. But when I would mention, it's somewhere in there. Usually, there's something that says, as you say, handles animal magnetism, and she loved everything that was positive in the prayers, but would not hear anything that was negative. She said, "Why do you even have to mention that?" And I said, "Well, that's the way it was. That's the way Mrs. Eddy recommended her. That was either her words." And it was so typical BOD style praying for her that she didn't want to hear anything that was even a mention of animal magnetism, even the addressing of it. And so it kind of shows just the mentality that is so prevalent in the BOD style church.
Thank you. Absolutely. It's a characteristic.
It's a correct characteristic of the human mind. It doesn't want to hear anything unpleasant, or it wants all the good without having to handle the evil. It's lazy. It's guilty.
Right? Yeah,
it's frightened.
It's fighting for its own life. It knows if you handle it, you will awaken to what it's doing.
And that's why Mrs. Eddy says, error is impersonal. Evil is impersonal. This is not a person resisting the truth. This is a false belief that is resisting the truth. And to the extent that we hang on to any false belief within us, we're going to feel that resistance. That's why when we feel uncomfortable, when we feel a resistance, whenever the truth is spoken, that's a good thing. You should look inside and say, oh, okay, what's trying to hang on to me to get me to do or think or act something wrong? And if you can deal with it that way impersonally, you can grow spiritually. And that's a sign of a good worker. So what is it that gets in the way for anybody that doesn't want?
Pride?
Thank you. That's why pride is deadly. There is nothing good about pride.
You'll find you get a much greater sense of peace and joy every time you do handle the animal magnetism. It claims that there's a power apart from God, and that's all it ever is. And if you just go skim over it, it's a natural tendency just to want to think about the good things. I was a classic case of that, and I was terribly miserable. Also, before coming here and meeting Mrs. Evans, I remember reading all this stuff, and a lot of it was all, oh, well, everything's great, wonderful. And I kept saying, well, how come it's not in my life? And how do I get there? And feeling this deep anxiety. And it wasn't until I came here and learned about all of this that I began to get, let's say, traction. Start feeling you can move. You're not just spinning your wheels, so to speak.
Now, let me just say what I was talking about is found on page 37 of Retrospection and Introspection. And she calls it the precious volume, which is when she added it, then ready to go.
Thank you. And in this new pamphlet we have by Big Del Young, his article, Electricity, is very interesting. But he says, how shall we meet the demands this age is making on us? By denying the claims of an evil mind power and discerning the spiritual counterfact, the irresistible Christ power, the one infinite mind force operating as all power and all presence, omnipotent love, constituting all consciousness and determining its own outward harmonious phenomena. If Christian scientists are discerning daily the powerlessness of so-called evil mind power to determine an outward phenomena, the chemicalization will be less severe, and it will shorten the days of error. And this is our great necessity. The uncovering and upheaval of so-called evil thought in the world is only evidence of what divine science is doing to bring these claims to the surface. Then, do we need to stand aghast and wonder what is going to happen next? The unfoldment of truth and love, which has brought these evil suggestions to the surface, will melt them away if you and I are faithful to our unfoldment to deny these aggressive suggestions until their powerlessness is recognized in our spiritual discernment of the irresistible Christ power, in the one infinite God power, the power of our scientific denials and spiritual discernment. Now you see, he doesn't just say God is love and everything's lovely. He's talking about dealing with the error. And think again, this sentence, if Christian scientists are discerning daily the powerlessness of so-called evil mind power to determine an outward phenomena. So, when you hear something in the news of evil trying to make a situation happen, you know it's powerless. It's not of God. Powerless. The chemicalization will be less severe, and it will shorten the days of error. And this is our great necessity. We must take this work very soberly and seriously, and do it daily, and do it every time you hear where there's some kind of error in motion. And this is what our watches are always about. And certainly, our Thursday night ones that deal with the nation and the world. And the Tuesdays and Saturdays are dealing with science, the cause of science, giving it free rein to go forth in our church and everywhere. The true science, not the bogus, but the true.
In Science and Health, Mrs. Eddy says that Christian scientists have enlisted, right? To do what?
Lessen evil and hold crime in check, too.
Thank you. But enlisted implies what?
An army.
You're joining an army. I know when I first came to Plainfield a couple of years ago, the idea of enlisting in an army was not something that I was interested in. I thought you could go through life being nice, being diplomatic, and that there was a pleasant solution to every problem. And boy, was I wrong. That was the result of the brainwashing I got in the Boston church. And it didn't work. And there were a lot of things in my life that were all screwed up as a result of that. But once I woke up one morning and I said, you know, it's okay to be in an army. It's okay to draw my sword and handle error. It's okay. And I'm going to do that. And I don't care if I hurt anybody's feelings. I don't care what, you know, all I care about is if I do right. And if God approves, that's enough. And once I made that declaration to myself, once I accepted that, all of a sudden, a lot of things in my life started to straighten out. And they've continued to straighten out. But if you're not willing to enlist to handle the false beliefs, then, fine, good luck. But don't expect things to work out really well, because you're not on God's side when you fail to take up false beliefs.
It's why we feel such a closeness to each other, because it's like being war buddies. We're all together working and have this closeness. And this lesson also handles this belief of Father's Day that there's a material creator, when over and over we're reading in Science and Health and also the Bible, there's the one creator, God good. He is our Father, Mother. And in finding Him as our Father, Mother, we find each other as brothers and sisters in Christ. And that is our family, the true family. And it's a family we unite on. And it's interesting because in the lesson it talks about adhesion, cohesion, and attraction. And those words, adhesion is the act of being united by growth, union. Cohesion, the act of sticking together, being united by natural attraction. And then attraction, the power and principle or tendency of bodies to unite. So,
can enemies ever unite?
No.
Can an evil purpose ever unite people?
No.
No. No, criminals can't get along with one another. And the reason why is attraction is only a property of mind with a capital M.
When they try to do so, it's very short-lived. Its conflict is inevitable. So it breaks apart. That's the nature of evil, is to destroy itself.
Yeah, they usually end up turning on each other.
And that's why we should never be fearful of conspiracies.
Again,
We should handle them. Don't ignore them. Don't condone them. Don't enable them. But don't fear them either.
yeah, and just as Big Del Young says, you handle it as powerlessness and know that it can't produce the phenomena it's trying to. And that statement from Science and Health, adhesion, cohesion, and attraction are properties of mind. They belong to the divine principle and support the equal pose of that thought, which launched the earth in its orbit and said to the proud wave, thus far and no farther. And, isn't it wonderful? Every morning we wake up and everything is percolating. I don't see people fighting in the streets. Good is so much more prevalent than evil, and it would only be the media that would get you to think otherwise. We need to be aware of what's going on so we can handle it, but we must never think it's prevalent, because it isn't. We talked about yesterday the qualities of God in that statement from Chronicles, vastness, majesty, greatness, the power, the glory, the majesty. That is God. It's covering the earth and the universe, His power and His glory. And that said to the proud wave, thus far and no farther. Elizabeth, she's here, right? Yes. Yeah, Elizabeth, tell them the experience. That was a statement we used in working.
Yes, so last year and the year before, there were a couple hurricanes headed toward our one of our homes in South Carolina. And that was a wonderful statement to work with, because this hurricane was actually headed right toward this island. And one of the things that happened is, and one of the newscasters noticed this, they saw the water, the wind was blowing the water down the beach instead of toward the island. And they said they'd never seen that before. And that was a wonderful demonstration of the wave, God holding that wave. And really there was very little damage.
A wonderful demonstration. All that they predicted and all the weather forecasts and all they said that was going to happen did not happen. God held that proud wave. And this is what can be expected as you are working with your science, and also when you have, as we talked about, money in the bank of God. If you've been living a wild and woolly life and have barely thought of God at all, and then, oh, help me, well, good luck. But when you are really living it, and you are one of the faithful ones, and you are working day in and day out, and God preserves the faithful. And these things you'll find happening, and then people scratching their heads wondering why they don't happen. Well, don't look at God. Look within. Anyone else want to say anything or ask any questions before I move on?
I just wanted to say about what Gary was mentioning earlier about, this is being enlisted into an army. When I first arrived here, my practitioner gave me a bunch of things to read, and one of them was the Dixon letter, and that was the smallest, so I read that first. And I don't know if I would really recommend that to a new person, but it really struck me like, wow, these people are doing something real. There's something real to this. So I'm very glad that I think that's the first thing I read. It made me take this seriously.
And that's why you keep it on the
oh yeah, it's never
website.
It's on my bookshelf. It's got its own place. So.
Well, it's a call to arms, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It's good to go back to it every so often, really.
Right.
I read part of it every morning.
Wonderful. It keeps your juices flowing. It reminds you why we watch. It explains things quite well. And so...
Yeah, that's the other part of it. Before coming here, I got into the place I couldn't even watch the news without just feeling, stricken that the world's a big evil place and I can't do anything. So to go from that to now where something comes up and I realize, okay, now I got to watch, and then through the course of watching I can find peace again. I'm very grateful for that.
Well, that's why we have to be so careful about the news, because they have to make money. They have to print something that will get people's attention. But as the Golden Text says, the heavens declare the glory of God. The firmament showeth his handiwork. Mary said, good is prevalent because good is the only power. I mean, if good wasn't the only power, we'd all be dead. There wouldn't be life. There wouldn't be truth. There wouldn't be just one God. But there is just one God. And that God is good. So when we see the good going on around us, we're acknowledging God. And we're seeing things as they really are. And that is a safe place to be.
That's what Paul said. We live and move and have our being in God.
Yeah. So, what a wonderful statement of truth. And now we've got work to do to prove it, don't we?
Wouldn't it be nice when the time comes when good will be the attraction so that the news will all be good news?
Yes.
That would be great.
Well, and we do. One thing to work on is the news, which is why Mrs. Eddie had the Christian Science Monitor, which...
That's why she started a newspaper,
yeah.
right?
And be very discerning in what you know to be true, what isn't true. So...
Something I learned a long time ago when I learned to weld was that if you slam a piece of iron hard enough with a hammer, it becomes magnetic. So I just think of that attraction will be there when we slam it hard enough.
Yes.
So this lesson is translating everything from this belief that we are matter beings and surrounded by matter and material forces to the understanding that it is all spiritual and that there are not two creations. We're not trying to destroy and get rid of one horrible creation. There's just the one. And if we keep seeing it and praying and watching, and we will have it. You will have it individually, and then we will have it collectively. Linda, read what you wrote on the forum. Yes, go ahead, read it. I especially want the Matthew Henry quote.
Okay. I wrote about Job 38, where it says, "Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth?" And Matthew Henry wrote of this chapter, the humbling of Job, and that, quote, "humble faith and sincere obedience see farthest and best into the will of the Lord," end quote. And then I just went on from there about the darkening counsel words without knowledge, which made me real excited when I found the Big No Young, because it was the same thing, as it you would use words, and what was behind the words was really important, and that you could say a lot of words, but they said there's a lot of writing, debating, speaking, preaching, conversation that explains nothing and leaves the subject more perplexed. And that was part of Job that I was writing on, and it made me realize the importance of what we say and write and what was behind it, because so much when I was in the BOD said a lot of these things we say here, but it did not have the same effect. And it can be very confusing and darkening. It actually even causes more fear. And that was very confusing to me. But now I'm understanding more. And I see why it's even worse, that if you do not know how to handle animal magnetism and you speak about handling animal magnetism, that's got to be one of the worst crimes there could be, because of the lack of clarity.
That's a good point, because as everybody has probably discovered, or if not, you soon will, once you declare something to be true, once you declare something, the devil's going to say, "Oh yeah? Prove it." And you're going to be put in a position where you're going to have to prove it. So it's like, what makes a good article?
From the heart.
Yeah, when you're writing about something that you've actually proved to yourself, not something that you intellectually think you might understand.
That is so important. The worst. That's the worst. That is what Linda's talking about. That's what rolls the stone against your heart.
But when you've proved something, and it's firmly emblazoned on your forehead and firmly embedded in your heart, you can write about it, and it will reach other hearts, and it will be of help to people.
You can also talk about it, and you can give a testimony about it. And it's what makes our testimonies meaningful, because that's what you were doing. Not intellectual. Anyone can get up and quote things and speak intellectually. That's what Linda was reading. It's terrible. It's awful. And it's what Bignell Young says will ruin the movement. It's done a pretty good job of that.
It's done a good job so far.
People don't understand it at all, and yet they talk about it like they do. So don't say more than what you have been able to live. And then citation 7, Carol, would you read it, please? In Science and Health.
Nature voices natural, spiritual law and divine love, but human belief misinterprets nature. Arctic regions, sunny tropics, giant hills, winged winds, mighty billows, verdant vales, festive flowers, and glorious heavens all point to mind, the spiritual intelligence they reflect. The floral apostles are hieroglyphs of deity. Suns and planets teach grand lessons. The stars make night beautiful, and the leaflet turns naturally towards the light.
Thank you. That's why we can look out and feel the beauty. Certainly are seeing it now, the beautiful June roses here in the east, all the loveliness, the lushness of the trees, and everything so beautiful, all hieroglyphs of God's presence and power. And on the forum, Parthen's right about suns and planets, each grand lesson, and he goes into the idea of sun and what does sun represent.
God.
God. Soul. And the story of Joshua, what is that story, Bruce?
Well, Joshua was fighting this battle until he needed more time, so he commanded, "Dear God, set the sun still so we can complete your work." And you think everything's in motion and the momentum keeps it going, but there's a higher power, and that's God. God did set the sun still so that Joshua and his army could complete God's work there. So there was a higher power that was ruling.
Thank you.
Never happened since.
No. But Parthen speaks of the idea of the sun being still and that penetrating light just shining forth, destroy anything unlike itself. And the importance of that stillness. What are some of the things the Bible says? Be still and know that I am God. And I believe it's at Collectanium, Mrs. Betty says that we need to study to be quiet. It always impressed me so. It's a very important trait, and in thinking about it, I see how important it is, because isn't it true that your thought is often racing? You're trying to do a watch or something, and it goes from one thing to the next. You've got to really hone it in. Stillness is most important. You can't go racing around like a horse at a horse track.
Well, one of the things that Florence had in her prayer is to teach me to still the clamoring of sense. I've been thinking of that.
That was a beautiful prayer. Where was that found again?
61 of the Blue Book, page 61.
Yes.
And in Mrs. Eddy's treatment for every day, toward the end, she says, Lord, help me to remain silent when it is not necessary to speak. I found that very helpful.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what somebody used recently.
Pardon me?
I said that's what somebody used recently for a demonstration, just to be quiet when it wasn't necessary to speak.
Oh, Colleen.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes, yeah, silence is golden. If you're ever with someone and they just become quiet, it's cause for thought.
Well, that's true in a lot of situations as well. Someone comes to you with an argument. Sometimes silence is the greatest rebuke.
The penetration of light. was mentioned earlier, light does penetrate. That's a good thing. It kills anything that's unlike itself.
Yes.
Another thing I like about this silence is it's the antidote to human ambition. You know, what's the motive that's pushing you or driving you? If it is God, then the emotions are at peace with Him. If they're not, better to be still until you feel His impulse.
It could also mean refusal to give error any life. When people start talking about certain erroneous things, silent and then knowing the truth, it's refuting it.
Very, very good. Very true. You just try that. Just don't say a word. If gossip is going on or something, you know, if you feel impelled to rebuke it, you can, but sometimes just be quiet and knowing the truth. They'll feel it. You know, Mrs. Evans was one who, she was talkative. But if you ever said anything and she was quiet, it was like, uh-oh. So those are all really good points as to when to be quiet. Don't engage in error or a silent rebuke, sometimes better than a verbal one.
Peter had to learn that yesterday in the Bible study.
Yeah.
Talking when he shouldn't have.
Right, yes, yep. And there's always this, you know, nervous conversation that sometimes people indulge in that's not necessary. Just talking because they're want to fill up the silence.
Silence can seem very uncomfortable.
But very important, and it is spoken about in other ways too, silence. What does Mrs. Eddy say? Silence for a space of an hour or something. You know, it's a wonderful thing. And what did you say about treading on forces, Bruce?
Well, yeah, it says we tread on forces, and somehow I just couldn't get my mind straightened out, because every time I hear the word tread, almost like somebody's stamping something down. But I found in the dictionary that there was a really good definition. That was to walk with dignity. And I felt we tread on forces. You know, well, these forces are God. He's the only force. So as we go about our day, we're actually giving acknowledgement and dignity to the great force itself that has set all things in motion. That's Almighty God. When we tread on forces, we are acknowledging God and His supremacy, and that He is indeed the force.
Better read that paragraph. Do you have it?
Okay.
Number 5. Spirit is the life.
Yeah. Spirit is the life, substance, and continuity of all things. We tread on forces. Withdraw them, and creation must collapse. Human knowledge calls them forces of matter, but divine science declares that they belong wholly to divine mind, are inherent in this mind, and so restores them to their rightful home and classification.
Thank you. Time and time again in this lesson, Mrs. Eddy is bringing everything back to God, the Spirit. So-called mineral, vegetable, and animal substances are no more contingent now on time or material structure than they were when the morning stars sang together. Mind made the planet of the field before it was in the earth. The periods of spiritual ascension are the days and seasons of mind's creation, in which beauty, sublimity, purity, and holiness, yea, the divine nature, appear in man and the universe, never to disappear. And as we're working, this is the present possibility. This is what we should be seeing. And then, this is very important for you, the true theory of the universe, including man, that means including you, is not in material history, but in spiritual development. So, what does that mean for you? How often do you think about your material history?
Too often.
That's what I'm going to say, too often.
I was going to say not as much as I used to.
Well, that's a better answer.
That is spiritual development.
What's important about your history is how it got you where you are, the spiritual things you've been learning all your life, the seeing God's presence and power with you throughout your life, your years, spiritual development. But if you're constantly thinking about your material history, when they ask you, go to a doctor's office and they want to know your material history. Not important. And they go back about your ancestors, how everybody was doing 80 years ago. I mean, honestly, you do have to laugh at it and not let it influence you erroneously. Because you're God's creation, and God created you in His image and likeness. End of story.
So the only way that I can know anything that's true about the universe or true about myself is to see God at work, is to see it spiritually, and not be impressed by the material appearances before my eyes.
So remember this, check yourself. Don't go into this material history. Let a little buzzer go off if you should. And stop it. And remember, it's only in your spiritual development. That's all that matters.
More clearly you see God at work, the more clearly we can see God's creation, the more clearly we will see what is real and true. Otherwise, we're looking at an illusion, human dream, that is not going to lead us to happiness or health, security, or anything good.
That goes along with the lesson as far as Jesus saying, call no man your father on earth.
Yep. Yep.
Over and over. And I love, the tree and herb do not yield fruit because of any propagating power of their own, but because they reflect the mind which includes all. So when you look at the tree and herb and you see all the blossoming and all the wonderful things going on now, not through any power of their own. And Colleen and also Florence and Gary spoke about it on the forum. Again, not two creations, but one creation. Don't get boggled down with the material sense of things. Florence, did you want to say anything about that? About seeing God as all?
Yes, I just love the reminder here all the time to know that God is all. And it might seem like, oh, well, I've heard it before, but do I really know it? And the section in the Bible, in the lesson that talks about creation is ever appearing and must ever continue to appear from the nature of its inexhaustible source. Mortal sense inverts this appearing and calls ideas material. This is the catch, always, catching us to believe a lie, the deception. And I said that Mrs. Eddy gratefully has given us the alertness to duty so that we'll be awake, not to be fooled, whether it comes as a feeling even, because when it comes as a feeling, sometimes it gets us there, So to be always knowing, no, God is all, this is not from God, therefore it's a lie, and push back.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to have Gary conclude now. We have something, it's a little long, but it's very good. Addresses by Martha Wilcox. Starts on page 362.
This is Martha Wilcox's Scientific Translations. When rightly viewed, all natural things, from the sands on the seashore to the stars in the heavens, are formations of spirit and are spiritual. So also is everything from a pin to a palace, including houses and lands and money, when these are correctly understood. Mrs. Eddy says, Science and Health, page 70, the divine mind maintains all identities, from a blade of grass to a star, as distinct and eternal, end quote. Then a star, which to one state of human consciousness is inanimate matter, when rightly viewed, is an identity or is identical with mind, spirit, and must be spiritual. The whole point at issue is our individual viewpoint. To the most of us, the sand on the seashore would seem very inanimate and material. But to Jesus, it would not seem so. Mrs. Eddy says, Miscellaneous Writings, page 74, Christ Jesus' sense of matter was the opposite of that which mortals entertain, end quote. Then what to us is material must have been to Jesus spiritual. There is an old legend taken from the Aquarian Gospel, which tells of Jesus when he was 7 years old. He was telling the people who had gathered before his home of a dream. He said, I had a dream, and in my dream I stood before a sea upon a sandy beach. The waves upon the sea were high. A storm was raging on the deep. Someone above gave me a wand. I took the wand and touched the sand, and every grain of sand became a living thing. The beach was all a mass of beauty and song. I touched the waters at my feet, and they were changed to trees and flowers and singing birds, and everything was praising God. I heard a voice which said, There is no death. The sea of life rolls high. The storms are great. The multitude of men are idle, listless, waiting, like dead sands upon the beach. Your wand is truth. With this you touch the multitudes, and every man becomes a messenger of holy light and life. You touch the waves upon the sea of her life. Their turmoil ceases. The very winds become a song of praise. There is no death, because the wand of truth can change the driest bones to living things, and bring the loveliest flowers from stagnant ponds, and turn the most discordant notes to harmony and praise. From Valley Glossary, page 596. To Jesus, things at hand were not inanimate, material things. This legend illustrates the fact that everything at hand, when viewed correctly, is spiritual reality. With our wand of truth, these spiritual facts can be translated into concrete, visible forms, which we can understand, and into human experiences which are needful. Our Heavenly Father knoweth that we have need of these things. Such things as health and sight and beauty and food and clothing and homes and friends and money. It is very important to know that there are not two groups of creation, but that all things are spiritual. Since there is only one group of creation, and all is spiritual reality, then it is very necessary that we understand that the concrete, visible expressions of these realities is the spiritual fact of reality itself, even though these visible forms appear as human sight, food, home, or a friend, or money. How different would man and the universe be to us if we would let this sense of separation of the human concept or material thing and the divine idea be swallowed up in unity, and see that loaves and fishes, the money and the wine, as the spiritual fact at hand, through the discernment of the reality of what the material senses behold.
That's the truth about our universe, and we can see it day by day. And we thank you all for joining our discussion this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. See you in church.
Hello, this is Suzanne. I'll be reading scriptural.
Good morning. Let's begin our service by singing hymn number 117. Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, early in the morning our song shall rise to thee. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, which wert and art, and evermore shall be. Hymn number 117. The scriptural this morning will be given by Suzanne from Vermont.
I shall read from the Psalms. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who coverest thyself with light as with a garment, who stretchest out the heavens like a curtain, who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever. He sendeth the springs into the valley, which run among the hills. By them shall the fowls of the heaven have their habitation, which sing among the branches. He watereth the hills from his chambers. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of thy works. He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of man, that he may bring forth food out of the earth. O Lord, how manifold are thy works! In wisdom hast thou made them all. The earth is full of thy riches. The glory of the Lord shall endure forever. The Lord shall rejoice in his works. I will sing unto the Lord as long as I live. I will sing praise to my God while I have my being. My meditation of him shall be sweet. I will be glad in the Lord.
We will have a moment of silent prayer and follow with the repetition of the Lord's Prayer and its spiritual interpretation as given in the Christian Science textbook. Our Father, which art in heaven. Our Father, Mother, God, all harmonious. Hallowed be thy name. Adorable One. Thy kingdom come. Thy kingdom is come. Thou art ever present. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Enable us to know, as in heaven, so on earth, God is omnipotent, supreme. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us grace for today. Feed the famished affections. And forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And love is reflected in love. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And God leadeth us not into temptation, but delivereth us from sin, disease, and death. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. For God is infinite, all power, all life, truth, love, over all and all. Let's now sing hymn number 45. Dear God, how glorious is thy name through all the earth and sea and sky. The wondrous heavens, thy handiwork, the moon and stars hast thou ordained. Hymn number 45. Welcome to the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. We begin each Sunday morning here at 10 a.m. with our roundtable discussion. And we had a really good one this morning. So if you missed it, please check it out on our website, plainfieldcs.com. Also on Sundays, we have a Sunday school for children, which is conducted via a teleconference number so that any child anywhere in the world can attend. On Wednesday evenings, we have a testimony meeting starting at 8:15, where you can hear testimonies of healings and lives saved through the study and practice of Christian Science. And at all of our services, we have a nursery available for infants and toddlers. You can find us not only here in Plainfield, New Jersey, but also on our website, plainfieldcs.com. Also, we have a channel on YouTube that contains over 3,000 videos and also live streams our services. And you can also find us on SoundCloud, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can listen to our services either on our website, our YouTube channel, or from your telephone via a teleconference number that we provide for that purpose. Let's see, next Saturday morning we will have one more Bible study session before we break for the summer. So check the website for the Bible study questions, and please join us. That's next Saturday at 10 a.m. Our website contains many very useful and helpful articles, and one that I'd like to point out that's featured on our cover page is one by Clara Schrader Streeter entitled Making Right Decisions. Very good. I highly recommend it. And let's see, we've been busy printing and mailing this week. The quarterly for the third quarter of 2018 has been printed and mailed to subscribers. And the July full-text lesson sermon booklet has been printed and mailed to subscribers. Everyone is welcome here, and that includes all of you who are listening and participating from around the world. And now we're going to have the reading of a testimony from the chapter entitled Fruitage in Science and Health, which attests to the healing power obtained just by studying the Christian Science textbook. And that reading will be given this morning by Shahidat from Maryland.
On page 640, freed from many years of suffering. In the spring of 1880, I was taken down with a severe attack of stomach trouble. Was bedfast for 3 months and not able to drive out for nearly 6 months. During this time, I had 3 good doctors treating me. I gained a little in strength, but had very little relief from the stomach trouble. I was recommended to try Mineral Springs and did so, but with the same disappointment. I went to a sanitarium, but yet the stomach trouble prevailed. I had some friends who recommended patent medicine, but no healing came. I worked along in this way for several years. Finally, I read medicine nearly 2 years with a good doctor friend, especially for my own benefit. And during this time, I had a severe attack of bladder trouble. And for 15 years, I suffered so severely at times that I thought life was not really worth living. In connection with these troubles, I suffered every winter with rheumatism and the grip. I also had a growth come in on both eyes called cataract, which caused my eyes to be inflamed nearly all the time. And this growth had made such progress that it was causing my vision to be very dim when reading. Horns were not forgotten, as I was reminded of them very frequently. And for all these troubles, I had tried every remedy I had heard of that I was able to get. Specialists included without relief. Thanks to a friend who put me in this hopeless, discouraged condition and led me to a life that never knows darkness, I got a copy of Science and Health by Mrs. Eddy and was healed in a short time by reading this work. From D.W.L. Anderson, Indiana.
The lesson sermon for this morning can be found on page 24 of the Independent Christian Science Quarterly. Subject: Is the universe, including man, evolved by atomic force? The golden text is from Psalms. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. The responsive reading is from Psalms. O come, let us sing unto the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation.
Let us come before his presence with thanksgiving, and make a joyful noise unto him with songs.
For the Lord is a great God, and a great King above all gods.
In his hands are the deep places of the earth. The strength of the hills is his also.
The sea is his, and he made it, and his hands formed the dry land.
O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker.
Lillian will read from the Bible.
I will read from the Bible. 1 Chronicles. Thine, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the victory and the majesty. For all that is in the heaven and in the earth is thine. Thine is the kingdom, O Lord, and thou art exalted as head above all. Both riches and honor come of thee, and thou reignest over all. And in thy hand is power and might, and in thy hand it is to make great and to give strength unto all. Now, therefore, our God, we thank thee and praise thy glorious name. Exodus. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, and spake, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My lust shall be satisfied among them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. Thou didst blow with thy wind, the sea covered them. They sank as lead in the mighty waters. Who is like unto thee, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders? Thou stretchest out thy right hand, the earth swallowed them. Thou in thy mercy hast led forth the people which thou hast redeemed. Thou hast guided them in thy strength unto thy holy habitation. Psalms. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember thy wonders of old. Thy way is in the sea, and thy path in the great waters, and thy footsteps are not known. Thou leddest thy people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. Job. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone whereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Or who shut up the sea with doors when it brake forth, as if it had issued out of the womb, and said, Hitherto shalt thou come, but no further, and there shall thy proud waves be stayed. Luke. When Jesus was returned, the people gladly received him. He took Peter and John and James and went up into a mountain to pray. And as he prayed, the fashion of his countenance was altered, and his raiment was white and glistering. And behold, there talked with him 2 men, which were Moses and Elias. And it came to pass, as they departed from him, there came a cloud and overshadowed them, and they feared as they entered into the cloud. And there came a voice out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son. Hear him. On the next day, when they were come down from the hill, much people met him. And behold, a man of the company cried out, saying, Master, I beseech thee, look upon my son, for he is mine only child. And lo, a spirit taketh him, and he suddenly crieth out, and it teareth him, that he foameth again, and bruising him hardly departeth from him. And I besought thy disciples to cast him out, and they could not. And Jesus answering said, Bring thy son hither. And as he was yet a-coming, the devil threw him down and tare him. And Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the child and delivered him again to his father. Matthew. Then spake Jesus to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, Call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father, which is in heaven. John. Philip saith unto him, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. Jesus saith unto him, Have I been so long time with you, and yet hast thou not known me, Philip? He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. And how sayest thou then, Show us the Father? Believest thou not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me, or else believe me for the very work's sake. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. Psalm. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. For he hath founded it upon the seas, and established it upon the floods. Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord, or who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitfully. He shall receive the blessing from the Lord, and righteousness from the God of his salvation.
Elizabeth from Georgia will now read.
I will read correlative passages from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. The creative principle, life, truth, and love is God. The universe reflects God. There is but one creator and one creation. This creation consists of the unfolding of spiritual ideas and their identities, which are embraced in the infinite mind and forever reflected. These ideas range from the infinitesimal to infinity, and the highest ideas are the sons and daughters of God. The universe of spirit reflects the creative power of the divine principle or life, which reproduces the multitudinous forms of mind and governs the multiplication of the compound idea man. The tree and herb do not yield fruit because of any propagating power of their own, but because they reflect the mind which includes all. Creation is ever appearing and must ever continue to appear from the nature of its inexhaustible source. Mortal sense inverts this appearing and calls ideas material. Thus misinterpreted, the divine idea seems to fall to the level of a human or material belief, called mortal man. But the seed is in itself, only as the divine mind is all and reproduces all. As mind is the multiplier, and mind's infinite idea, man and the universe, is the product. The only intelligence or substance of a thought, a seed, or a flower is God, the creator of it. Mind creates his own likeness in ideas, and the substance of an idea is very far from being the supposed substance of non-intelligent matter. Hence, the father mind is not the father of matter. The material senses and human conceptions would translate spiritual ideas into material beliefs, and would say that an anthropomorphic God instead of infinite principle, in other words, divine love, is the Father of the rain, who hath begotten the drops of dew, who bringeth forth Mazzaroth in his season, and guideth Arcturus with his sons. The true theory of the universe, including man, is not in material history, but in spiritual development. Inspired thought relinquishes a material, sensual, and mortal theory of the universe and adopts the spiritual and immortal. The universe, like man, is to be interpreted by science from its divine principle, God, and then it can be understood. But when explained on the basis of physical sense and represented as subject to growth, maturity, and decay, the universe, like man, is and must continue to be an enigma. Adhesion, cohesion, and attraction are properties of mind. They belong to divine principle and support the equipoise of that thought force, which launched the earth in its orbit and said to the proud wave, "Thus far and no farther." Spirit is the life, substance, and continuity of all things. We tread on forces, withdraw them, and creation must collapse. Human knowledge calls them forces of matter, but divine science declares that they belong wholly to divine mind, are inherent in this mind, and so restores them to their rightful home and classification. So-called mineral, vegetable, and animal substances are no more contingent now on time or material structure than they were when the morning stars sang together. Mind made the plant of the field before it was in the earth. The periods of spiritual ascension are the days and seasons of mind's creation, in which beauty, sublimity, purity, and holiness, yea, the divine nature, appear in man and the universe, never to disappear. Nature voices natural, spiritual law, and divine love. But human belief misinterprets nature. Arctic regions, sunny tropics, giant hills, winged winds, mighty billows, verdant vales, festive flowers, and glorious heavens all point to mind, the spiritual intelligence they reflect. The floral apostles are hieroglyphs of deity. Suns and planets teach grand lessons. The stars make night beautiful, and the leaflet turns naturally toward the light. Christian Science presents unfoldment, not accretion. It manifests no material growth from molecule to mind, but an impartation of the divine mind to man and the universe. the scientific fact that man and the universe are evolved from spirit, and so are spiritual, is as fixed in divine science as is the proof that mortals gain the sense of health only as they lose the sense of sin and disease. Mortals can never understand God's creation while believing that man is a creator. God's children already created will be cognized only as man finds the truth of being. Thus it is that the real ideal man appears in proportion as the false and material disappears. Science reveals infinity and the fatherhood and motherhood of love. Jesus acknowledged no ties of the flesh. He said, "Call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father, which is in heaven." Again he asked, "Who is my mother, and who are my brethren?" Implying that it is they who do the will of his Father. We have no record of his calling any man by the name of Father. He recognized Spirit God as the only Creator, and therefore as the Father of all. The finite must yield to the infinite. Advancing to a higher plane of action, thought rises from the material sense to the spiritual, from the scholastic to the inspirational, and from the mortal to the immortal. All things are created spiritually. Mind, not matter, is the creator. Love, the divine principle, is the father and mother of the universe, including man. Spiritually, to understand that there is but one Creator, God, unfolds all creation, confirms the Scriptures, brings the sweet assurance of no parting, no pain, and of man deathless and perfect and eternal.
Let us now have a moment of silent prayer for our world. Let's now sing hymn number 9. All glory be to God Most High, and on the earth be peace. The angels sang in days of yore the song that ne'er shall cease, till all the world knows peace. Hymn number 9.
and starry skies unfurled before me. And I feel the tender blades of grass 'neath my feet, and the silent breeze so sweet. I wonder, am I worthy of this grace?
I am the spot where God shines through. He and I are one, not two. One, not two. And He wants me where I'm as I am. Wants me where and as I am. I will not worry, fret, nor plan. I will not worry, fret, nor plan. If I would be relaxed and free, He will carry out His plan for me.
Has there ever been a time where I was alone? Were my tears of yesterday unknown? Where was your strong hand? Could I ever separate myself from you? There is nothing I could do to change the fact your being is my life.
I am the spot where God shines through. He and I are one, not two. One, not two. And He wants me where as I am. Wants me where and as I am. I will not worry, fret, nor plan. I will not worry, fret, or plan. If I would be relaxed and free, He will carry out His plan for me.
And I'm one with the whole universe of life,
for it all expresses Him. One shining spot, I am the spot where God shines through. He and I are one, not two. One, not two. And He wants me where and as I am. Wants me where and as I am. I will not worry, fret, nor plan. I will not worry, fret, or plan. If I would be relaxed and free, He will carry out His plan for you and me.
Let's now sing hymn number 37. City of God, how broad and far outspread thy walls sublime, The true thy chartered freemen are, of every age and clime. Hymn number 37.
I will read from the Christian Science textbook, The Scientific Statement of Being, and the correlative passage from 1 John, 3rd chapter. There is no life, truth, intelligence, nor substance in matter. All is infinite mind and its infinite manifestation, for God is all in all. Spirit is immortal truth. Matter is mortal error. Spirit is the real and eternal. Matter is the unreal and temporal. Spirit is God, and man is his image and likeness. Therefore, man is not material. He is spiritual. Behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Therefore the world knoweth us not, because it knew him not. Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And every man that hath this hope in him purifieth himself, even as he is pure. Be thou exalted, Lord, in thine own strength, so will we sing and praise thy power. Amen.